In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your first web page. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so at this point, we've done two things. We've installed Notepad+, and we've installed Google Chrome, which is the web browser we're going to be using. Now, in order to create our web page, we have to use the Notepad+ program, launch that, and start typing away, and then save our file. Let's go ahead and start that part of the process. So, if you've installed Notepad+ in your computer, you should have a icon on your desktop for Notepad+. If you don't, you can also access it through hitting your Start button, going to All Programs, and then looking for Notepad+ and clicking on it from there. Okay. So go ahead and open up Notepad+. And what you should see, if this is the first time you've launched the program, is an empty document. There's nothing in it at all. Okay, that's good. That's what we want. If there is something populated here, say you've used it before, you can always click on the New button here to launch a new document if you'd like. Alright, so we're going to create a very basic web page. Here's the syntax. First, I have to do an opening declaration, or in this case, I type in the less than symbol, the exclamation point, and then in all caps for this next word, type in doctype. That's DOCTYPE. And then type in space, and then type in HTML, and then close out the tag, or type the greater than symbol. What this signals here is that this is a document, and it's an HTML document. So when the web browser reads this file, it knows to treat the file as HTML, or in this case, with this new declaration, it's HTML5, which is what you're learning in this class. On the second line down, we want to go ahead and type in our opening HTML tag. Okay. In this case, we're not going to give it any options, just plain HTML. Okay. So again, that's less than HTML greater than, or the opening HTML tag. Then go ahead and do another line and type in your closing HTML tag. Now the difference between usually in HTML between an opening and a closing tag is that the opening tag is, in this case, it's HTML. To close out this tag, you type in /HTML. So it's like open, close. See the difference here with this /. Okay. This means I'm opening up my document. Everything inside here is HTML that I'm going to be typing. And then when I'm finished, I say, well, I'm done with HTML, and I close it out. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is go back up to the second line at the very end of the line and hit the enter key a few times. Open up some space here. And then I'm going to do what's called indentation. Underneath this opening HTML tag and the next line underneath it, I'm going to hit tab. And what that does is it's just a real clean way of when you program, when you're coding, to let people, whoever's reading your code, know that, okay, this is a different line of code, it does this thing, it does that thing. It's basically trying to make sure that it's clean, people kind of understand what's going on instead of having to hunt to figure out what your program is doing. They can actually look through the way that you have it indented and formatted to get to the information easier, basically. Think of it this way. If you read a document, you have headings, and you have paragraphs, and you have line breaks, and things like that, instead of having all of your text scrolling from left to right, all in one giant sentence or one giant line of text. Same thing here when we use indentation. Just makes it easier to read. Alright, now the second thing that you have, third thing you have on any web page is called your head section. Okay, so that's another new tag. It's called head. Okay, then I'm going to hit enter again, and I'm going to type in a closing head tag. Okay, so that's the next section that I have. I'm going to go back up. I'm going to put in a blank line here, and then hit tab again, and I'm going to put the title of my web page here. So that's yet another tag called title. And the title is, this is the title of the web page. So when I render this, up at the very top, you'll see that the title of the page will show up here. I'm going to go ahead and call this one sample web page. And then I'm going to put in a closing title tag because I'm done. Now, here's one of the things when you have open and closing tags on the same line. This is something that you can do. And what this does is it just helps save space, basically. Another thing you can do is if I wanted my title to be different, an opening tag, and then on a different line my content, and then a closing tag, I can do that too. But see how it takes up all this extra space? What I can do is just put everything on one line. Okay. You'll see that sometimes with paragraphs, where you will have maybe a short sentence. Well, there's no sense in opening up a paragraph tag, putting your paragraph in a different line, and then closing the tag. It doesn't make sense. You can just do it all on one line to save space. Alright, so anyways, I have my title set up. I've put my title in. I've opened the title tag, put the content in, or the title in, and then put in what's called a closing title tag at the end. Okay. And that's all that's going to go in my head section on this one. As we get further along in the course, I'll explain more of what the head section does, but right now we'll just stick a title in there. Okay. Now, so that's the heading. That's what has information for the web browser that it needs to know before your browser goes in and starts actually displaying the content of your web page. And that's in a different section called the body section. Okay? And anything inside the opening and closing body tags is actually rendered, or it's shown on the page when you go to view it. Okay? So in order to put the content of what's on your page out on the internet, you put it within the body section here. That's an open body tag, and then at the very end, right before you finish with HTML, with your closing HTML tag, you put your closing body tag in. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to show you is just called a heading, and this is an H3 size heading. They go from H1 to H6, H1 being the largest sized text, H6 being the smallest size text for headings. So this one's right in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and for this heading I'm just going to say sample web page. When I'm done with that heading, I do a closing H tag. Okay, so /. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in a very brief paragraph called sample, but I'm going to say sample paragraph, so that's a P tag. I'm going to type in sample paragraph and make sure I spell it right, and then close out this paragraph. And then I'm going to type in a paragraph that has 2 lines in it, okay, underneath here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a paragraph, open P tag, and then I'm going to type in first line. Then I'm going to put in what's called a line break, and that's simply just hitting your enter key when you're typing. Like you say you're typing in Word and you want a new line, you just hit enter. This is how you do this in HTML. You want a line break, a line between 2 lines of text. And one of the things about line breaks is that they have what's called a self-closing tag. That's something that you need to remember, because there are a few different HTML tags that do this. And that is, in this case, BR and then space and then /. So it's saying I need a line break, and then there's really no begin line break and then close line break. It's just line break. It's just BR with a / at the end after a space. And then I'm going to type in second line. And so this is what's on my second line here in this paragraph. And then finally, I'm going to close out the paragraph here. And I don't want to save just yet. I hit the wrong button there. Alright. So this is what we have so far. And actually that's going to wrap it up for this specific example, as we'll start getting into more of the advanced formatting and layout features of HTML next week. So let's go ahead and recap what we have here. First thing that you have to do when you're setting up an HTML document is you put in what's called a doc type at the top. Okay. What I'm saying is that my doc type is HTML. This lets the web browser know that this is an HTML file and should be rendered as such. In other words, the web browser looks at this file, it's going to process it in a certain way, and we want to tell the web browser to make sure that it processes this file as an HTML file when it goes to spit it out on the web browser. Alright, on the screen. And then we have an open HTML tag. Anything inside of this opening tag and this closing tag is treated like HTML. In the head section, this contains document-specific settings. In this case, the only setting that we're changing is the title, and we're setting that to become our sample web page. Okay? That's the only thing we need in this head section, so we'll go ahead and close it out with a closing head tag. Now we're getting to the content that's actually displayed on the screen. That's inside your body section. And we actually have a few different things in here. One, we have an H3 size heading that says sample web page. We have two different paragraphs. The first one just says sample paragraph. There's nothing, I mean, it's just very short and sweet. And then we have a second paragraph that has two lines in it. On the first line, it has some content. In this case, it says first line. And then we have what's called a line break, and that just creates an empty line or between the first line and then our second line that we have here. And then finally closing out the paragraph when we're finished. We close out the body section because we no longer have anything that we want to display on the screen. And then finally we close out the HTML document. So in a nutshell, that is your first web page. Now, last thing we need to do here, actually two things we have left to do. One, we need to save the file, and then we need to go ahead and run it or render it. So to save your HTML file, you click File, Save As. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on my desktop. And I'm going to, for the purposes of this course, I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this one Web Page Development. And I'm going to call this file Sample Web Page. Okay. Now, one of the things that you want to do when you're creating your files is, one, the file name should be all lowercase, and two, don't have any spaces in your file name. It should if you have a space, substitute that space for an underscore. So in this case, it'll be sample underscore web underscore page. Now this is probably the most critical thing here to remember, because this always kind of hangs people up sometimes, and that is to save as type. By default, it saves a file as .txt, and what we want to do is make sure that we change this to Hypertext Markup Language File, or HTML. If you don't do that, it won't render properly. Okay? So you need to remember that step, and then go ahead and click Save. Alright, last thing we're going to do is go ahead and open up Chrome and pull this file open. And there are a couple different ways to do that. I'll show you what the easiest way is here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this window. And then I'm going to click on, since I'm on my desktop here, I'm going to click on that folder that I created called Web Page Development. And then I'm going to double click on the file that I created called Sample Web Page. And here's what I should see. I should see that H3 size heading called Sample Web Page. That first paragraph called Sample Paragraph, and then the second paragraph that has the first line and then a line break. In other words, just a break here, and then on the next line, a line that's called second line. So that, in a nutshell, is how we create our first web page. Now, if you're curious and want to see what the source of this web page looks like, all you have to do is right-click and then do what's called View Page Source. And that'll show you, ta-da, all the code that you created just a minute ago. Okay. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I will help you out. Thanks for watching.